Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with a severe weather outlook and discussion recorded on April 4th, 2023, recorded around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Lots to talk about today, including a potential bimodal significant severe weather event. So let's go and jump straight into everything. Taking a look at the water vapor satellite imagery here, we notice that we have an upper level trough that is now on the United States, and this is going to be moving off generally towards the east over the next couple of days, and this is going to promote a strong surface low to develop out here kind of across the four corners, and then or really to the east of the four corners around portions of New Mexico and Colorado, and this will shoot up rapidly towards the north and east later today, promoting some potentially significant severe weather. Looking at the SPC risk outlines for today, we have two moderate risk areas really stretching from about near Little Rock, Arkansas, back into far extreme southeastern Oklahoma, back to near Springfield, Missouri, and another moderate risk level 4 out of 5 for places like Peoria, Waterloo, to the east of Des Moines and surrounding vicinities. We have a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk for St. Louis to near Milwaukee, Des Moines, just to the east of Kansas City, and Little Rock. A slight risk from near Memphis and South Bend, Chicago, Milwaukee, Kansas City, and Tulsa, and a marginal level 1 out of 5 risk surrounding that area right now. The tornado probabilities for today is going to be quite high. Again, that's the main reason why we have this moderate risk of a 15% tornado probability in two areas. First of all, with the southern mode, this 15% means a 15% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a given point. Now, that is very significant given that your chances of being hit by an actual tornado are less than about 0.1%. So if you think about within a 25-mile radius having a 15% chance of a tornado, that is quite significant. And so we have these two 15% areas near Little Rock, Springfield, and Fayetteville in the south, and across the north, just to the north and east of Peoria, and to the east of Des Moines, Iowa, including places like Davenport and Waterloo, with a 10% area surrounding that from St. Louis, Springfield, Little Rock, and then from Peoria and surrounding vicinities, including some of the areas around Columbia, Missouri, etc., with a large 5 and 2% respectively surrounding that. And again, even if you're in the 2% area, I want to emphasize that just because the 2% is less, of course, the highest risk is going to be out towards the west, especially in places like Champaign, South Bend, Chicago. But your tornado threat is non-zero. There's still a 2% risk there. Even Memphis, that's included in the 5%, you could still see some tornadoes, especially as we head into the overnight hours as the storm system progresses towards the east. So this is quite significant, and we could see some strong, potentially even violent tornadoes in the enhanced and moderate risk areas within the 10 and 15% areas respectively. The wind probability, just a gigunda 30% area from about near Milwaukee, St. Louis, Little Rock, Fayetteville, Springfield, Des Moines, Waterloo, and Davenport, with a large 15% area surrounding that from just near Indianapolis, Champaign, Milwaukee, South Bend, Kansas City, Tulsa, and to near Memphis. Again, 30% area, which is the red area that indicates 30% chance of seeing winds over 60 miles per hour within 25 miles of a given point, and that 15% and 5% so on respectively from there. And the hail threat for today. We've already seen some pretty significant hailers out across portions of near Davenport, Iowa, into portions to near Rochelle, Illinois at this point. We have a couple of ongoing severe storms. We'll take a look at that here in a second. But a large 30% area from near Des Moines, Columbia, Missouri, Peoria, again, towards Davenport, Waterloo, even into portions of southern Wisconsin, and we have a large 15 and 5% areas surrounding that. Again, even though you're in the 5% area, that doesn't exclude you from seeing potentially significant hail upwards of 1 inch in diameter or greater. Now, kind of looking at all the surface parameters for today, we'll kind of back this out here so you can kind of get a little bit of an idea of what's going on. First of all, we have surface pressure falls out here across portions of the Dakotas at this point, and this is going to be, well, over Nebraska and South Dakota, and this will be moving into Iowa over the next couple of hours here and rapidly ejecting towards the northeast. We have a cold front that is going to be also surging to the east later today. And then in the warm sector here, we have dew points that are in the 70s out across portions of Arkansas today. So quite high dew points. And even those 60 dew points do reach pretty far northward. I mean, these dew points are just kind of tracing it out here pretty far to the north at this point. So our 60s are something kind of like that right now. So we're kind of seeing a fair good amount of dew points here. And then we got our dry line that is going to be kind of setting up along this area as well for later today. But again, these dew points are lifting northward with a warm front that is kind of draped across the region right now. You can kind of see the extent of this warm front, just kind of something like that at this point. And that is going to be lifting northward over the next couple of hours. So all these ongoing storms right now, these are all elevated storms, meaning they are not, rooted in the surface layer. They are rooted aloft. So tornado threat there is quite low. But this warm front will be surging northward as it progresses throughout the next several hours, and this will allow for these temperatures to warm and our dew points to also rise and the threat for severe weather to increase. But there's a lot of uncertainties here in this overall forecast. If we look at the HRRR here, and we'll jump to these dew points here. So this is the 16Z HRRR. We notice exactly where our warm front is right now. It's kind of surging northward. But there's kind of a problem here. You notice that, again, we actually get these dew points to, well, they dissipate. They're not as high. And a reason for that is because we're dealing with mixing of the atmosphere, meaning that as you start to get the higher temperatures and you start to get more vertical mixing aloft down to the surface, you start to really push a lot of that dry air downward, and that is going to lower the dew points. And here on the HRRR, you've got dew points that are into the 50s in the supposed warm sector. Now, a quick note here, the HRRR does have a bias towards overmixing, meaning you end up with lower dew points than reality. So that is something just to kind of keep in mind. If we take a look here at the NAM 3 kilometer, and we can kind of give an idea here of exactly what to expect as well. We'll take a look here at these dew points again. The NAM kind of follows a similar progression as well. We can kind of see our dew points right now are going to be kind of situated along the warm front right now. So that is going to be certainly something that we're going to have to kind of keep in mind. And these dew points surge northward, but we end up getting these 70 dew points into Iowa and Missouri. The NAM also has a bias of undermixing, which means that it does not mix the drier air aloft down to the surface as it really should. And so we're kind of left in between the two extremes where we've got these 50 dew points here, and then we've got dew points that are in the 70s out across the warm sector at this point. So kind of in the middle of these two, we have somewhere of a scenario where we end up with dew points roughly in the low 60s. And that, again, would be somewhat sufficient for severe weather. But it's going to call into question how well the boundary layer moisture is and if that extends far enough. And what I mean by that is we'll just take a sounding real quick here from the HRRR. And you notice that, again, there's virtually, here with the mixed layer, you notice how the temperature and dew points here are very well spread apart, meaning that we don't have a lot of good moisture at the surface. In fact, this would mainly be an elevated setup where you've got all the instability aloft here. And if we take a look here at the NAM, for instance, just kind of cherry picking areas, but just to kind of give an example, although this is convectively contaminated, you notice how the moisture is much closer before it starts to taper off. There's a deeper moist layer up to about 1 kilometer. So all of this being said, there is a really big question in terms of the moisture for today's event, which is why we have not seen an upgrade to a high risk for this northern mode as it kind of stands right now, because we just don't have confidence in if we're going to get enough storm coverage. And we can see here on the HRRR, in fact, we do get storms to form undoubtedly, but they move quickly north of the warm front. And then you're left with, by 3Z just after, about 8 p.m. Eastern, you're left with no storms in this area. And that's kind of one of the things. Most of the storms for most of the day sit up here. However, there's a different threat shaping up for this evening. We could see potentially a very significant severe weather threat also shape up across the south later this evening, because most of the day we're not going to have thunderstorms that is going to be present out across this area. And because of that, we're going to have ample instability down here. And in fact, you notice that these dew points here on the HRRR, for example, stay in the upper 60s for most of the day. And in fact, by just after about 10 p.m. or so Eastern time, our dew points are still sitting up in the 60s across this area and even approaching 70 in places. This is going to be kind of the impetus for a potential significant severe weather episode across portions of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and some of those surrounding vicinities, even into portions of Missouri tonight as this front then approaches. We notice that dew points stay elevated even through just about 6 a.m. tomorrow morning as we start to get that front to roll through. And so there's going to be potentially two modes of severe weather. One where we kind of get maybe isolated discrete storms to form here kind of later towards evening across portions of the south. And those translate northward into an increasing capped environment. And then we'll start to see a squall line approach portions of the northern mode by sometime late tonight into early tomorrow morning. And potentially another mode that tries to develop out here across portions of Arkansas and Oklahoma that could also favor some long track discrete supercells capable of producing some significant, potentially even violent tornadoes. So there is a threat for kind of multiple rounds of significant severe weather today. However, with that being said, starting with our southern threat, our thunderstorm threats are only enhanced today. Now, I just want to repeat this. This does not follow SPC specific categories here when we're talking about enhanced, moderate, whatever. This is not SPC driven. This is just based on my own analysis. And this does not exactly correlate with SPC risk, ideology either. But the overall thunderstorm risk today across central Arkansas and southern Missouri is only enhanced. So we're only talking about scattered thunderstorms instead of widespread thunderstorms. And that's mainly in part because we just have less forcing. And again, that confidence in seeing widespread thunderstorms, at least during the day into the early overnight, is very limited. So only going with an enhanced thunderstorm threat as we progress throughout the rest of the day. However, any thunderstorms that can break through the environment today in this area, central Arkansas and southern Missouri, are going to have a conditional threat for producing tornadoes, wind, and damaging, hail. So all of these threats are going to be elevated on the moderate side, again, kind of following in line with that kind of 15% tornado risk and between about, really about 5 to 15% for wind and hail respectively. And then our northern mode, it's basically the exact same thing. Thunderstorms only going with an enhanced threat. Honestly, I thought about downgrading that to a slight threat, but we're going to keep it at enhanced for now, just given the overall favorability. I do think that we'll see some thunderstorms develop. Again, widely scattered, nothing widespread, at least during the afternoon, it seems like. And again, all the same threats apply: tornadoes, wind, and hail, both being up there at a moderate threat for today. Again, generally about 10 to 15% for tornadoes and about 5 to 30% for wind and hail. I think we're going to see some pretty significant hail threats, and we can see that in radar right now. We've got some pretty significant hail, storms out there, pretty significant wind and hail, kind of approaching the Rochelle area. And we've got a couple of other significant storms as well down here. Just kind of want to briefly look at this one storm up here. Got a pretty significant hail threat with it as well. You can kind of see we had a pretty deep hail signature with this up to about 15 to 20,000 feet. So some pretty significant hail that is likely falling in some of those areas. And this is all elevated storms. You can see there's no other storms right now to the south of here. And so this environment is going to be prime and ready to go for significant severe storms later today. But again, it's going to call into question some of our moisture and how that all is going to play out. All right. So, of course, I'll be live streaming the event, later this afternoon and into the evening. We'll be kind of covering all this, but it's going to be very interesting. We'll have to see how things kind of shape up. With that being said, take care, everyone. God bless, and I will talk to you guys again some more later today.